Can women ever just be? In this episode, we're going to talk about the very real threats of being the healer archetype. This podcast is for anyone who is in the process of becoming. I hope that whoever's meant to hear what I have to say is listening. But as always, all the guns to the front. There's a woman in my life who I love so much, but she says yes to everything. She never takes a break. She kind of has the serial "I'll do it later" complex when later never really comes. There's also somebody else that I love so much in my life who's a woman also and is a serial people pleaser. And she knows she is. She knows she grew up that way, but still works so hard. And I just want these people in my life, these women in my life, to feel ease. There's this beautiful passage in Women Who Run with the Wolves by my teacher, Dr. Clarissa Pinkola Estes. She doesn't know she's my teacher, but I'm her student. And the passage goes like this. The great healer archetype carries wisdom, goodness, knowing, caregiving, and all other things associated with the healer. So it is good to be generous and kind and helpful, like the great healer archetype, but only to a point. Beyond that, it exerts a hindering influence on our lives. Women's heal everything, fix everything compulsion is a major entrapment constructed by the requirements placed upon us by our own cultures. Mainly pressures to prove that we are not just standing around taking up space and enjoying ourselves, but that we have redeemable value. In some parts of the world, it's fair to say, to prove that we have value and therefore should be allowed to live. These pressures are introduced to our psyches when we are very young and unable to judge or resist them. They become law to us unless or until we challenge them. So good. So I wanted to take a look at this from a psychological point of view of what this does to us, right? One, it perpetuates gender stereotypes, which may be the obvious thing, but being the healer archetype, it limits women's opportunities of expression and growth, and it confines them. Then you have gender role theory that suggests rigid adherence to traditional gender roles. It hinders both professional and personal development. Women are pressured to conform when they're just trying to exist, like they're just trying to be. That can make women avoid pursuing leadership roles, creative endeavors, other paths that challenge the stereotypes, especially if they weren't taught to speak their minds or build boundaries from childhood. And all of that limits their potential. Why wouldn't we want to be in a society where people were reaching their full potential and creative peaks? Like, how badass would that environment be for everyone? That would benefit everyone. So something else the overexertion of the healing archetype can cause is emotional exhaustion and compassion fatigue. Now, compassion fatigue is a condition characterized by diminished ability to empathize or feel compassion for others, and it's usually as a result of prolonged caregiving. It's actually very well documented. Women who habitually say yes to caregiving responsibilities without setting boundaries can experience this condition. Not surprisingly, the repetitive yesing can lead to a sense of detachment, decreased satisfaction in their caregiving roles, and even mental health issues like depression and anxiety. Cool. Heavy sarcasm there. So all of this can also lead to burnout. The yesing, especially when driven to fulfill the healer role, can lead to burnout. People mention burnout a lot, but here's what it is. Here's what it can lead to. Feelings of cynicism, detachment, a sense of reduced accomplishment, and things like that. Now, personally, I would say the burnout that I felt numbness. I would sometimes have lack of appetite, sometimes too much appetite, lack of responding to stimuli. I just remember in my extremely unhealthy relationship at the time, I felt like a weighted blanket was over me and like I couldn't fully breathe from not saying yes to myself, from not building boundaries and tolerating too much. Women who overextend themselves by constantly caring for others without replenishing their own energy are particularly susceptible to burnout. And if you keep going steps further, it can cause a loss of identity and autonomy in these people. What does prioritizing other people's needs over your own do? Whether it's like romantically, parentally, professionally, etc. You lose touch with your own identity and desires, basically, is what happens. Your personal goals get overshadowed. Self-care becomes a memory. Sense of self is foggy. And I definitely relate. That's how it felt to me. Now, from a developmental psychology standpoint, one thing is crucial for healthy self-esteem and personal growth. That's autonomy. Often we're taught that a woman's worth is tied solely to their ability to juggle multiple roles, one of them being caring for others. And that can honestly lead to feelings of emptiness, lack of fulfillment. Again, personally, I felt lost. I felt insufficient. Now, keep in mind, this is all what could happen when the fix everything, do everything for everybody else complex goes too far. No one is saying don't take care of the people that you love. But this is when it goes too far and what can happen when it does. Now, the antidote to everything that I listed is homing and self-solitude, which is going to be its own podcast episode. And it's also boundaries, which is also, I think, the answer to a lot of problems. How do you know what boundaries to put where? A simple way to navigate a healthy balance of being is to just ask 2 questions. And I learned this from my teacher, again, Dr. Estes. The 2 questions are, what needs less and what needs more? Meaning, what needs disposed of, what needs moved or changed, and what needs protection and nurturing. If you have that no bullshit conversation with your instinctive self and you take action on the answers, some shit is going to change.